Hello, history scholars. Mrs. Olson here. Today's video lesson is titled Democracy in Classical Athens. So we've been studying ancient Greece, and today's video lesson is specifically on the type of government that originated in the city-state of Athens, and we call this democracy. So, the person that I want to introduce you to is named Cleisthenes. Can you say that with me? Cleisthenes. So this is a figure, a bust of Cleisthenes that is superimposed on this painting. And the painting is of the city-state of Athens. And we can see the Parthenon on top of the hill. Now, Cleisthenes was from a ruling family that used to live under a tyranny, and Cleisthenes knew that he did not want to live under a tyranny. Now, a tyrannical leader uses cruelty and oppression to rule. If you go against a tyrannical leader, they might hurt you or they might even kill you. And Cleisthenes knew that he did not want this for the city-state of Athens. What he did want was for ordinary men, not women, ordinary men to have a say in government. So he wanted citizens to be able to speak, to have their opinion heard, and then and for people to listen to that and then come to a decision. So he created this idea and he called it a democracy. Now, one thing that is kind of interesting is that the word democracy did not exist until Cleisthenes made it up. Okay, so I chose this graphic to kind of match this note right here, in that in today's world, in the United States, the way that we, when we turn the age of 18, the way that we have a say in our government is by casting our vote. That's how we get our ideas heard, and then we vote on it later on. Okay. Now, with Athenian democracy, ordinary men could make all of the important decisions. So, I want to reiterate again here that it is only men. Women were not allowed to be part of the decision-making process. Now, this group of men met on a hill and they called it the Pnyx. The Pnyx is actually located across from the Acropolis where the Parthenon stands. When they met on the when they met at the Pnyx, all of these men together were called an assembly. And women, children, slaves, foreigners, they were not allowed to go to this meeting that the assembly held. Only citizen men. Now, here's one important thing to remember, that every man could have a say, okay? And before anything was decided, they had to have 6,000 men there. So all of the men citizens that are part of the city-state of Athens had to be there, 6,000 of them. And the assembly met once a month. Now, I chose this graphic to show you what it would look like maybe in ancient times of these 6,000 men listening to each person have their say on top of this these stairs, this block stand right here. So if you wanted to talk, you got up here and then everybody would listen. This is what the Pnyx looks like today. So here is that stand. You can see the stairs, and then this has crumbled away, but this is where they would stand, and then all of the men would listen. Across from the Pnyx is the Acropolis, that's the hill, and then this structure right here is called the Parthenon. And so today they have events at the Pnyx, as you can see all of these modern day chairs lined up here. Okay, moving on to the Council of 500. So, out of those 6,000 men, the Council of 500 is this B word here. You pronounce this boule. The boule, they actually met more often. So if you remember, the assembly met once a month, and the boule, they met more often and decided things that were not as important as what the assembly decided. So they were actually able to suggest laws to the assembly of men. They also made sure that laws were enforced. They also did things like they fixed streets if they weren't smooth and it was hard for their carts to get over them. They helped to fix buildings, and they built ships for the Athenian Navy. Okay, so I have some graphics for you. So remember that they enforced laws. That would be like our policemen today. They fixed roads, they fixed buildings like we have workers do today. And then they also built ships for the Navy. And this is a Greek ship from ancient times. Okay, this slide is titled Athenian Officials. So, there are two types of officials that we have here. This word is pronounced archons, and they took care of religious events like sacrifices. So a sacrifice is when you kill something or someone, and oftentimes other people are watching the killing of this thing or this person. Okay, and then the strategoi, or the generals, they were actually elected. So people had to decide who these generals were, and these men were in charge of the army and the navy. So some graphics to match that are sacrifices. So this is a lamb being sacrificed, and it was part of the ancient Greek religion. And this is a person in the army representing the generals who commanded the army. And here we have actually a battle of ancient Greece, and you can see all of their ships here. Okay, our last part is about their justice system. So, in ancient Athens, they actually had 500 men every day on their jury, and these 500 men heard cases, okay? They were decided by majority. So that means that out of the 500 men that you had to have a majority vote. So majority is going to be more than 250. That's half of 500. They had to have more than 250 to make a majority. And if the person was convicted in the case that they heard, then they held another vote to decide on sentencing. Okay? And they also decided if laws that were passed by the assembly, remember those are the people meeting at the Pnyx, were legal or not. And this is kind of like our Supreme Court. Okay, that brings us to the end of democracy in ancient Athens. And I hope you are recognizing that parts of the government in Athens are similar to how the United States governs the country today, because we based our ideas off of Greek ideas, in part. All right, guys, hope you learned a little bit. Ask me questions if you have them. Bye.